I met Greg Hoblet, who was, one of the first producing directors. And I think that particular position has, and I've done that, and I'm doing it now on Homeland, and I think it's essential to the creative storytelling in television. And yes, you have, with Stephen Bochco, an incredibly powerful storyteller and showrunner, and Greg was the balance and the visual storyteller to that incredible writing, and they were quite a formidable team. But it was through Greg that I started directing there, and it was also a great experience. He had a very specific style on that show. So that's a very different example. Like, that was very much, long lens, whip pan, moving camera. And, when I came in, it was the first season. The show was still finding itself. Great cast, complicated cast to work with. But, really kind of groundbreaking TV. And I think Stephen did that also with Hill Street Blues. I mean, he was a game changer in terms of storytelling and TV. And so I watched all the shows up until the one I was going to direct. And I went to Greg and said, Greg, I love the show, but I need to understand what you were exploring when you move the camera like that, because some directors I understand and some I don't. So I want to hear it from you. And he told me that no one had asked that question. And what he explained to me is that, let's say you and I are talking, but something over there catches your eye, and you go and you check that out, but you come back to your conversation. Well, human perception works like that. So that totally made sense to me, and it didn't feel arbitrary. It didn't feel like, oh, I'm here and I'm just going to go over there for no reason and then come back to you, which feels silly and unnecessary and kind of self-conscious. So once I understood what he was exploring, it was really fun to work with that and find different ways to tell the story with that in mind.
Do you remember any examples of you personally bringing something to that style?
Well, I think I brought motivation, when that could be somewhat unclear. So for me, it always needed to be motivated, rather than arbitrary.
Talk a little bit about Stephen Bochco and David Milch and working with them.
I mean, both brilliant storytellers. And, I think they were a great combination together. I certainly worked on shows. I think Brooklyn South there were not scripts all the time. With NYPD Blue, whatever that combination was, you had a script, So, and really in-depth character work. And I think that was kind of what was so amazing about what they did. They took a cop genre, which is kind of a staple of TV, and it can be kind of generic, and they made it so specific and so character-based. And I thought that was kind of the brilliance of that show. Besides stylistically what it did and the energy of it, and it feeling very visceral and real because of the handheld camera and the long lens, the movement of the long lens camera. It was also the in-depth looking at character, and flawed characters as well.
Right.
So the hero didn't always just have the white hat on.
Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes the hero didn't have anything on.
Exactly.
Did you direct any?
I did.
How did you handle those nude scenes?
That I did a love scene between David Caruso and Deborah Ferrantino, and I choreograph everything. And I found with doing delicate scenes like that, the best way to do it to make it not self-conscious is if you choreograph it and you talk about it as a dance. So you're going to do this here, and you're going to turn her there, and then your hand's going to go here. So it's not like you're asking someone to do these kind of intimate things, and it can be so self-conscious. But if you really break it down, okay, we're going to do it like a dance piece, so that you can inhabit all the movement, and it takes you out of that place. And I've found that's, for me, the best way to work with actors doing those kind of scenes. But yes, that's what we did.
And Bochco was known for, in that show specifically, was known for pushing the limits
Absolutely.
With the censors. Did you ever have to reshoot anything or do like a PG version of?
No, there were certain things, no, I never had to do that. but he definitely pushed the limits. He like what David Lynch did in Twin Peaks. I mean, I think those couple of shows were like, in a certain way, the beginning of cable TV. Pushing the limits with storytelling, with language, with having it be realistically real. That were game changers.
Talk about working with David Caruso and Dennis Franz.
Dennis Franz is such a lovely guy and skilled actor, and really, again, that was such a great character, and they were an amazing team together. And I had a really good experience working with David, but he was complicated, and if he couldn't remember something, or if he didn't feel like he got it right or was living out the truth of it, he would beat up on himself in a way that was really difficult. And it was difficult for the actors around. And I think it was coming from a real place of wanting to do a great job, but it was difficult. And you had to just hang in there with it. It was difficult for the other actor in the scene, and kind of painful. But I thought he was amazing in the show. And they were an incredible duo together, and partially because they were so different. But their working process was very different. Dennis was very kind of easygoing, inhabited the character, and David was much more, it was much more of a struggle some of the time, and other times it wasn't. So complicated, but very interesting. And you know what? As a director, you have to be able to deal with everyone's process. No one does it the same way. No one gets into directing or acting the same way. Everyone has their own path that is so profoundly unique. And I think you have to be, whether you're the therapist or the mother or the strict father or whatever skills, the sociologist or whatever it is you have to be, you're going to have to be it to get the performance. And to make the actor feel safe to reveal something about the human condition. It's such a risky job to be doing. I'm behind the camera. But the actor is putting themselves out there in such a vulnerable, real way that I think, we as directors have to be able to help them get to that place, whatever that looks like. And the first thing I did when I started directing is go back to acting. So I would be able to talk to an actor in a way that they could hear that would be, constructive.